Okay, this is the rear of the bus inspection. Now, on this inspection, we're going to do from the windshield back toward the rear. Starting out, we're going to start out with the windshield. We'll make sure that there's no cracks or damage to the windshield, no illegal stickers, and that it's clean. Then we'll do the mirrors. We'll name the mirrors. This is a side view mirror. This is a convex mirror. We'll want to make sure that it's securely fastened, no missing bolts or parts, and that the mirror itself is clean and not cracked or damaged. Next, we'll move on to the door, and we want to make sure that the door operates properly, that the seal is intact and in good condition, and there's no damage or missing bolts or parts. Next, we want to go to the side of the bus, and we are inspecting the passenger side of the bus first, and then we'll inspect any unique items on the back side. We're going to look at our lights. This is a turn signal hazard light. We want to make sure there's no damage to it, that's the proper color. We've got our reflectors here. We want to make sure that the reflectors are the proper color. There's no damage and they're not missing. They are amber in front of the rear wheels and red behind the rear wheels. We want to look at our clearance lights to make sure that they are not broken or damaged and they're the proper color and no missing bolts or parts. We're also going to look at the depth tank right here. And the way we're going to check it is we're going to open it up. We would tell the examiner that we would take the cap off and we would check the seal. Also, while we're here, we're going to check and make sure that the tank doesn't have any missing bolts or parts, it's secure, and that there's no leaks underneath the bus there. Next, we're going to check our emergency exits. Here, we want to make sure that they're marked properly with reflective tape. They're not broken or damaged. Next, we're going to check our fuel tank back here, our diesel fuel tank. Once again, we would tell the examiner that we're going to open the door. We would tell him that we would remove the cap, check the seal, make sure that there's no damage to it. Next, we'd make sure that the tank itself, we would look under the bus, make sure that the tank is securely fastened, no missing bolts or parts, and there's no leaks underneath the bus. Next, we're going to have to get under the bus, and there's three main things that we're going to check for. The three main things are the frame of the bus, the drive line or drive shaft of the bus, and the exhaust system. Those are the three biggies right there, not counting all the rear wheels and tires and suspension and all that. Here, we'll do that in just a minute. So first, we're going to work our way underneath the bus. This right here is the frame on the bus. We want to make sure that it's not bent or damaged. There's no missing bolts or parts. There's no illegal welds, and none of the welds are coming loose. Right here is our exhaust system. We want to make sure that there's no missing parts, no missing bolts or parts. There's all the connections are secure, and there's no damage to the pipes or the exhaust system, and also that there's no soot pattern around the connections that would indicate a leak. Next, we're going to check our drive line right here. We want to make sure that it is not bent or damaged. There's no missing parts, and that our U-joints are secure and there's no debris in them. Also, we want to make sure our safety straps are in place and secure. All right, now those are the big three, but now we're going to move on to our suspension parts. So we'll be looking back toward the rear of the bus. First thing we want to check is our springs, our leaf springs right here. And these, we want to make sure that they are not shifted or out of place. There's no missing bolts or parts, and they're not cracked or damaged. Next, we will check our spring mounts. This is the front one. The rear is on the back side of the springs. No missing bolts or parts. They're securely fastened, both the top and the bottom. Next, we're going to check our U-bolts, right here. And we want to make sure those are not broken or damaged. No missing nuts, and they're secure. Next, we're going to check our shock absorber, which is back here. We want to make sure it's secure at the bottom and at the top. It's not broken or damaged, and it's not leaking. Next, we're going to check our brake lines, which are right here. We want to make sure they're not bulging or damaged, and all the fittings are tight and they're not leaking. Next, this is a disc brake bus, and so we would make sure that there's no damage to the pads and they're not worn dangerously thin and there's no oil on them. Also, because it's a disc brake bus, it has a rotor, and we would check the rotor to make sure it's not cracked or damaged and that there's no oil on it as well. In between our tires here on our spacing, we want to make sure that the tires are evenly spaced and there's no debris in between the duals. Next, we're going to move our way out and talk about the tires. There's a lot of threes on the bus, and once again, there's three things to check on the tires. We want to make sure that the tread depth, that it is no less than 2/32, there's no retreads, and that it's evenly worn. Also on the tires, the second thing, we want to make sure there's no cuts or damage on the inside or the outside of the sidewalls. It's not bulging. The third thing on the tires is inflation. We would check the inflation by taking the cap off. We would use a tire gauge, and we would check the pressure to make sure it's to manufacturer's specs, or 80 to 120 pounds. Our wheel right here, we want to make sure that there's no damage to it, no cracks, no illegal welds. Also our lug nuts, we'll make sure they're all there. We want to make sure they're secure, they're tight, and there's no shiny threads or rust trails. Next, we're going to check our oil seal, and we want to make sure that all the nuts are in place and tight, no shiny threads, and there's no spray pattern that would indicate a leak. Next, we're going to check our splash guard or our mud flap. We'll make sure that it's bolted and secure in place, no missing bolts or parts. It's not torn and it's not missing. Okay, we're moving along. Okay. Our reflector, once again, is proper color and it's present, not missing. Our lights. When we get to the back of the bus, we're going to name all of our lights. We've got our clearance lights, our amber warning lights, our red loading lights, our backup lights, our brake and tail lights, our turn signal hazards, also brake and tail lights, and also our reflectors on the back. We want to make sure that there's the lenses are the proper color, they're not missing any bolts or parts, and they're not cracked, and they're clean. Next, we're going to check our rear door. We want to make sure it operates properly, that the hardware all works, that it catches like it's supposed to, and that the seal is in good condition and not damaged. And also that the handle opens and closes like it should. Now we're working our way over here to this side, and I would tell the examiner that I'm going to check this side just the same as I did the other, with the exception of the unique items. And those unique items are our stop sign that we have here. We want to check our lenses to make sure they're the proper color, they're not cracked or damaged, it operates properly, and the wire connections are secure. And lastly, we're going to check our fuse panel. We'll look inside. This is a circuit breaker bus. I would tell the examiner that it's a circuit breaker bus with the little buttons on the inside. And if it does have fuses, then you have spare fuses in the glove compartment. This concludes our rear of the bus inspection.